good, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Randy. Of course, you are watching the 5.5 Garage, and today I will be continuing on with my Turbo Miata engine build project. I will be installing the camshafts, the timing gear, as well as a harmonic balancer, so I can get this engine ready to be put back into the car. I will be installing pretty much all of the parts that are involved with the timing on the engine. It's a lot of parts I need to get to, so I'm going to cut this intro short and just get started. Here we are back at the cylinder head. The first thing I want to work on installing is the camshafts. So I'm going to take some of my assembly lube, and everything that the camshaft lobes will touch is going to get assembly lube on them. So I'm talking about the lifter shims, I'm talking about the buckets where the cams are going to sit, the caps, everything is going to get a lot of lube on it so that I know when it comes time for me to start priming this engine to start it, everything will have some kind of coating of lubrication on it, so I shouldn't have any issues. So this is the intake cam, this is the exhaust cam. The exhaust cam has a longer end on it than the intake cam. That's how you tell the two apart. The exhaust cam will go on this side. Now that the cams are in, you're going to want to put on your caps. And I hope you were following along in the disassembly video, because your caps have to go back to where they correspond on the head. So as you can see here, I marked this one I2, so this is the second cap on the intake side, and this one is the second cap on the exhaust side. Make sure your caps are going back where they're supposed to go. When Mazda milled these heads at the factory, they basically just have the caps in place and they run a reamer down through that makes the cap to the spot where it is on the cylinder head. So make sure they go back where they came from. So now that we've got the front cam caps on, I'm going to go ahead and install my front camshaft seal. I got a little bit of the assembly lube on them, and I'm going to lube these up too, just to help make it just slide on here pretty easy. Now normally this would be the point when you would come back here and put your cast seal in, but I won't be running a cast on this motor when it goes back into the car. I'll explain it in a later video, but for now I need to seal this area up back here where the plug goes, and I'm going to use a little bit of my Right Stuff RTV sealant and seal this up to make sure there's no leaks back here. Usually you don't get leaks back here with the plug, but I'm just doing this to ensure that I don't. I have already went ahead and I put in my cam bolts, just finger tight. I can still turn it by hand. And the next step is to torque these down. Now you will have to use a sequence to tighten these down. And basically you want to start from about the middle and then work your way out in a circular pattern. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and do the same thing on this side, working my way out in a radial pattern. Now the torque spec on these bolts is 100 to 125 inch pounds, not foot pounds, inch pounds. If you don't have an inch pound torque wrench, it roughly works out to about, I want to say, anywhere from like 8 to 10 foot pounds. It's not a lot. Don't get the spec wrong and think it needs 100 to 125 foot pounds. It's 100 to 125 inch pounds. I will have it on the screen somewhere down here in big, bold typeface font so you guys understand it's inch pounds. You do not want to crack these. All right, now I have went through, torqued everything to spec, and then I double checked it again to make sure that I am on the money. I am, so we can move on to the next step. Now that we have all the camshafts all torqued in, the next step is to install this timing cover, and it fits like so. And you want to put this on before you put on the gears, because if you notice, if you put the timing gears on, you can't slide this underneath. This is the cam gear from the BP05 head, which is the original head that came on my engine. And then this is the cam gear that comes on the BP4W head. Now they're pretty much the same, but the big difference is that the BP4W timing gear has these little nubs on it. It's the best way that I can explain it. And what those do, they are what triggers the cam sensor that is located on the valve cover. Now, one of the reasons I want to use a BP4W head, besides the revised porting, is that it uses a cam sensor on the valve cover and removes the cast. With a little bit of wiring that I'll do in a future video, this is going to allow me to switch over to the MB style of cam sensor management, and I don't have that big cast sitting off the back. This next phase is a little confusing to people, but I'm going to make it as simple as possible for you. It's really not that hard. So, using a big crescent wrench, there are tooling marks on your camshaft that will allow you to put a wrench on it to turn it. Turn your camshafts till this indexing pin is facing at 12 o'clock straight up on both of them, like I have here. Then take your intake cam, which is this one, and as you can see, the eye is facing 12 o'clock straight up. And put it like so. Then take your exhaust cam with the E, facing 12 o'clock straight up, and then put it like so. Now, with the index pin both facing north, these cams are set up properly. So you can go ahead and put in your bolts and tighten these down. Now, once you got these on properly, you also notice here on your timing cover, there's an E and then there's an I on this side. And they will correspond to the marks on your timing gear at that point. So this should be pointing to an E, and the E is right there. And over here, it should be pointing to an I, and the I is right there. And that's how you know these are set up properly. Once you have that all done, torque these to 37 to 44 foot-pounds. Now that we have our camshaft gear on, it's time to now turn our attention to the crank gear. And I will be installing a new crank gear as well with a new key. As well, I won't be using the stock harmonic balancer. I will be switching out to something different, and I'll show you that in a second. But first, let's get that new crank gear on. And if you remember from previous videos, my old gear would not come off, so I had to take a chisel and crack it to get it off. And I will be replacing it with a brand new one that I bought. As well, I have a new crank pin. And to kind of help this along, I am going to put a little anti-seize in this groove with the pin so that it won't get corroded and stick in there. And I should be able to easily get it back out if I have to do any maintenance. Now that the crank gear is on, I got the pin in, the next step is to install the damper. And I'm not going to use the stock damper like I said earlier. I instead decided to go with the fluid damper, and this is model number 521001. And they have revised their setup. It used to be it bolted onto the stock belt guide, but now it is a complete unit that actually you slide it on and it's held in place with the crank bolt. So I am going to give this one a shot and see how it works. I do have to add my trigger wheel to this, and I will show you guys how I set that up before I install everything. First thing you gotta do is remove the belt guide off of the back, set it to the side, And this is a trigger wheel I'm going to run. This is a 36-2 trigger wheel. And the way you line it up is there's a pin on your belt guide, and then there is a pinhole in the trigger wheel. And you line it up like that. Line that up, and now this is all set. And there are 4 bolts that you're going to screw in here, tighten those down, and then that holds this all together. And these are the bolts that come with the dampener. They got a nice outlet head in them. I'm going to use some Loctite on these just to ensure that they don't back out. Install the dampener now, and these are 3/16 Allen head bolts, just in case you didn't know. So next step is I have my Gates belt, which is a T179. I'm going to go ahead and place it there and just loosely put it over the gears at the top. And next I'm going to take my new crank bolt. It's already got some thread sealer on it, blue Loctite. Line this up like so, and then get this started. The specifications say 116 to 125 foot-pounds. I am going to use my impact and try to get as close as I can, because right now I am unsure how I'm going to be able to keep this from spinning when I go to torque it down. I tried torquing it with the torque wrench and it's just going to spin. So this might be one of those things that I saved for the last torque check when I get it back into the car and it's connected to the transmission, and I can put it in gear and then torque it down without it moving. The next step is to go ahead, finish installing the rest of the timing kit, and then start getting this thing set for proper timing. All right, so the belt's on, and the first thing I'm going to do is put the idler pulley right here. Okay, so this is where it starts getting tricky, and I'm going to take the camera angle and kind of widen it out a little bit. This is the part where we're going to start timing the motor. First thing you need to do is make sure that your crank is at top dead center. I'll have a graphic somewhere on the screen illustrating what I'm about to tell you, but there is a timing mark that is on the oil pump that corresponds to a timing mark on the crank gear. Both of those need to be facing each other, and if they are, then that means that your crank is at top dead center. Before you pull your belt around, make sure that your exhaust cam is in proper top dead configuration, meaning the exhaust cam, the E is facing 12 o'clock, and corresponding over here on the timing mark, it is facing the I that's on the camshaft, excuse me. These marks line up, so then you can go ahead and wrap this around. And go like that. And then what you're going to want to do is take up all the slack out of this, and it might be like that, and then pull it around. Now slide that over like that. You want to make sure that your intake cam is in top dead configuration. Mine isn't, because you can see that the I is not facing 12 o'clock, it's actually off. As well, the E doesn't line up correctly to the timing mark right here. So I'm going to take my wrench, roll this back to make sure that this is at top dead center. Once that you got that all set, we're going to come down, and next step is install our tensioner. And there's a little peg that's right here that slides onto, and then you're going to thread this in here, but don't tighten it down yet. Keep your tension on your belt so it doesn't slide. Pull that around like that. There is a little pin here, and this spring is going to go around that and then clip into your adjuster. Do this. Oop. And just let this thing like launching at your eyeballs. So. Yeah, there we go. This is the one. All right. And the spring is now on. 18, 19 teeth in between the top, which means that this is timed. The spring is on. I have loosened up my tensioner. Now, a couple spins. Full revolution. Bring it back around top that center, see if we're lined up. E, I, we're good to go. Give it one more good spin for good measure. That's not on top and center. Now it is. E is lined up, the I is lined up, and the engine is now timed. Whew. I think we're about done for today. All right, guys, now that I have all that done, I'm considering that a wrap for today. We are getting so very close to being able to put this engine back into the car. There are a couple of little small projects that I have to do in order to get this thing ready, but for the most part, a lot of the bulk engine building process is done. I was pleased that when I was sitting there cranking it over, checking the tension on the timing belt, I could actually hear compression. So when the valves were opening and closing, I could hear it. So that was a really good sign. That made me feel really good about that. I hope you all are enjoying the content. I hope you all are enjoying this build series. And if you are, please, please, please hit that like button. It helps me out so much because it bumps me up in the YouTube algorithm, making it easier to find my videos for all the other people out there who have not stumbled across me yet. And for those of you that have stumbled across me and you're liking the content, make sure you click that subscribe button as well so you know when these videos come out. Also, make sure you're following me on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Patreon. There is behind the scenes stuff that I do here in the garage that sometimes does not make it into a video. Be it might be a little tip that I stumble across while I'm doing something. It might be something that's related to a video, but it doesn't really fit into what I'm trying to do in that video. So I do little write-ups and things and I stick them on Patreon. There's also times when I'm out here and I'm not necessarily filming, but I might come across something and then I will record it and throw it up on Instagram. So make sure you're not missing out on any of that stuff. Whew, that's a lot to say. So with all that said, I've been out here all day. I am a little tired. It's still a really nice evening, so I'm going to try to rush through, put all my stuff away, kind of clean up the garage a little bit, and then go take my Speed 3 for a drive. And speaking of the Speed 3, I have gotten so many questions about whether or not I had sold my Speed 3, and that was the reason why there wasn't any Speed 3 content on the channel. That is not true. As I'm sitting here filming this right now, my Speed 3 is sitting right there. It's just the car is running great. There's nothing wrong with it, so there's really not anything for me to make a video on. I do have some project ideas I will be working on over the winter pertaining to the Speed 3. It's just for right now, I just want to get this engine build out of the way. So for all of you out there, there's Speed 3 content coming. I didn't sell the car. I'm gonna go ahead and end this video. I hope you all are enjoying your day out there, wherever you are, staying safe. I will see you guys on the next one.